radio, and author of books including War is a Lie. He is also the director of World Beyond War. If you want to connect with David after this service, he will be selling copies of some of his books outside, and he will also have a list available for you to join his listserv if you'd like to stay in touch with him. And he will also be with us this afternoon at 2 p.m. in the church, when we will dedicate a new peace pole here at St. Joan of Arc and recommit ourselves to being a church of peace and nonviolence. In today's gospel, Jesus is offered love and comfort from a woman who is described only as a sinner, and he offers her love and forgiveness in return. That causes quite an uproar, and I have to say that when David sent me his text for this morning on truly radical forgiveness, it made me have an internal uproar as someone who claims to be a follower of Christ. David's challenge to us and to himself makes me very uncomfortable in a very necessary way. And I am extremely grateful that he is with us this morning. Please welcome David Swanson.
Sorry for overdressing. Forgiveness is a universal need among those of us who are not religious and among believers in every religion on earth. We must forgive each other our differences, and we must forgive much more difficult occurrences. Some things we can forgive easily, by which, of course, I mean eliminating resentment from our hearts, not granting an eternal reward. If someone kissed my feet and poured oil on them and begged me to forgive her, frankly, I would have a harder time forgiving the kisses and the oil than forgiving her a life of prostitution, which is, after all, not an act of cruelty toward me, but the violation of a taboo into which she was likely compelled by hardship. But to forgive men who were torturing and killing me on a cross, that I would be very unlikely to succeed at, especially as nearing my end, in the absence of a crowd to influence, might convince me of the pointlessness of making my last thought a magnanimous one. As long as I live, however, I intend to work on forgiveness. If our culture truly developed the habit of forgiveness, it would dramatically improve our personal lives. It would also make wars impossible, which would further dramatically improve our personal lives. I think we have to forgive both those who we think have wronged us personally and those whom our government has told us to hate, both at home and abroad. I suspect I could find well over 100 million Christians in the United States who do not hate the men who crucified Jesus, but who do hate and would be highly offended at the idea of forgiving Adolf Hitler. When John Kerry says that Bashar al-Assad is Hitler, does that help you feel forgiving toward Assad? When Hillary Clinton says that Vladimir Putin is Hitler, does that help you relate to Putin as a human being? When ISIS cuts a man's throat with a knife, does your culture expect of you forgiveness or vengeance? Forgiveness is not the only approach one can take to curing war fever, and not the one I usually try. Usually the case that's made for a war involves specific lies that can be exposed, such as lies about who used chemical weapons in Syria or who shot down an airplane in Ukraine. Usually there is a great deal of hypocrisy one can point to. Was Assad already Hitler when he was torturing people for the CIA? Or did he become Hitler when he defied the US government? Was Putin already Hitler before he refused to join in the 2003 attack on Iraq? If a particular ruler who has fallen out of favor is Hitler, what about all the brutal dictators whom the United States is arming and supporting? Are they all Hitler too? Usually there is aggression by the United States that can be pointed to. The U.S. has aimed to overthrow the Syrian government years and avoided negotiations for the nonviolent removal of Assad in favor of a violent overthrow believed to be imminent year after year. The U.S. has pulled out of arms reduction treaties with Russia, has expanded NATO to Russia's border, has facilitated a coup in Ukraine, has launched war games along the Russian border, has put ships in the Black and the Baltic Seas, has moved more nukes into Europe, has begun talking about smaller, more usable nuclear weapons, has set up missile bases in Romania and under construction in Poland. Imagine if Russia had done any of these things in North America. Usually one can point out that no matter how evil a foreign ruler is, a war will kill large numbers of people unfortunate enough to be ruled by him, people who are innocent of his crimes. But what if we tried the approach of forgiveness? Can one forgive ISIS its horrors? And would doing so result in the free rein for more such horrors or in their reduction and elimination? The first question is easy. Yes, you can forgive ISIS its horrors. At least some people can. I feel no hatred toward ISIS. There are people who lost loved ones on 9/11 who quickly began advocating against any vengeful war. There are people who've lost loved ones to small-scale murder and opposed cruel punishment of the guilty party, even coming to know and care about the murderer. There are cultures that treat injustice as something in need of reconciliation rather than retribution. Of course, the fact that others can do it doesn't mean that you can or should do it. But it's worth recognizing how right were those family members of 9/11 victims who opposed war. Now, several hundred times as many people have been killed, and the hatred toward the United States that contributed to 9/11 has been multiplied accordingly. A global war on terrorism has predictably and indisputably increased terrorism. If we take a deep breath and think seriously, we can also recognize that the resentment that calls out for forgiveness is not rational. Toddlers, children with guns kill more people in the United States than do foreign terrorists. But we don't hate toddlers. We don't bomb toddlers and whoever's near them. We don't think of toddlers as inherently evil or backward or belonging to the wrong religion. We forgive them instantly, without struggle. It's not their fault the guns were left lying around. But is it the fault of ISIS that Iraq was destroyed? That Libya was thrown into chaos? That the region was flooded with US-made weapons? That future ISIS leaders were tortured in US camps? That life was made into a nightmare? Maybe not, but it was their fault. They murdered people. They are adults. They know what they are doing. Do they? Remember that Jesus said they did not. He said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." How could they possibly know what they are doing when they do things like what they have done? When U.S. officials retire and quickly blurt out that U.S. efforts are creating more enemies than they are killing, it becomes clear that attacking ISIS is counterproductive. It also becomes clear that at least some people engaged in it know that. But they also know what advances their careers, what provides for their families, what pleases their associates, and what benefits a certain sector of the U.S. economy. And they can always hold out hope that perhaps the next war will be the one that finally works. Do they really know what they do? How could they? When President Obama sent a missile from a drone to blow up an American boy from Colorado named Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki, one should not imagine that his head or the heads of those seated too close to him remained on their bodies. That this boy wasn't killed with a knife shouldn't make his killing any more or less forgivable. We should desire no revenge against Barack Obama or John Brennan, but we should not limit our outraged demand for truth, restorative justice, and replacement of murderous with peaceful public policies. A U.S. Air Force officer recently said that a tool that would allow dropping food accurately to starving people in Syria would not be used for a purely humanitarian operation U.S. military is blowing through tens of billions of dollars on killing people there and hundreds of billions of dollars every year on maintaining the ability to do so around the world. We have CIA-trained troops in Syria fighting Pentagon-trained troops in Syria. And as a matter of principle, we can't spend money on preventing starvation. Imagine living in Iraq or Syria and reading that or hearing that. Imagine reading the comments of Congress members who support militarism because it supposedly provides jobs. Imagine living under a constantly buzzing drone in Yemen, no longer allowing your children to go to school or to go outside the house at all. Now imagine forgiving the U.S. government. Imagine bringing yourself to see what looks like massive evil as in fact bureaucratic mishaps, systemic momentum, partisan blindness, and manufactured unawareness. Could you, as an Iraqi, forgive? I have seen Iraqis do it. We in the United States can forgive the Pentagon. Can we forgive ISIS? And if not, why not? Can we forgive Saudis who look and sound like and who support ISIS, but who our televisions tell us are good, loyal allies? If so, is it because we haven't seen Saudi victims of beheadings, or because of what those victims look like? If not, is it because of what Saudis look like? If forgiveness came naturally to us, if we could do it immediately for ISIS, and therefore instantly for the neighbor who makes too much noise or votes for the wrong candidate, then marketing campaigns for wars would not work. Neither would campaigns to pack more Americans into prisons. Forgiveness will not eliminate conflict, but it would render conflicts civil and nonviolent, exactly what the peace movement of the 1920s had in mind when it moved Frank Kellogg of St. Paul, Minnesota, to create the treaty that bans all war. This afternoon at 2 p.m., we're going to be dedicating a peace pole here on the grounds of this church. With permanent war ever present in our culture, we badly need such physical reminders of peace. We need peace in ourselves and in our families, but we need to be wary of the attitude taken by a school board member in Virginia who said he would support a celebration of peace as long as everyone understood he wasn't opposing any wars. We need reminders that peace begins with the abolition of war. I hope